It was the year 701 BC. Jerusalem, a city of no more than a few thousand souls, lay in the shadow of an unstoppable force. The Assyrian army, masters of war, had conquered kingdoms, cities, and kings. Their siege engines were unmatched, their discipline absolute. And yet, this small city, surrounded and outnumbered, survived. The question is not how it was attacked, but how it endured. This channel tells the stories history textbooks often overlook. We explore moments where discipline, systems, and the weight of decisions, not luck or heroics, decided outcomes. We focus on the unseen forces, logistics, strategy, governance, and endurance. These are the moments that shape civilizations quietly but irrevocably. This is not just a tale of a siege. It is about the limits of power, the tension between empire and resilience. It is about how one city, isolated and vulnerable, could defy one of history's most formidable armies. And it is about why this moment changed the understanding of survival in the ancient world. By the late 8th century BC, the Assyrian Empire dominated the Near East, from the Tigris River to the Mediterranean. It imposed its will with an efficiency that seemed mechanical. Assyria was not a simple military state. It was a system: administration, intelligence, diplomacy, and terror all fused into a single machine. Assyrian armies were among the most disciplined in history. Every soldier trained rigorously. Siege engines were advanced, battering rams, towers, and sophisticated ladders. Their psychological warfare was systematic. Cities that resisted faced mass deportation, ritualized executions, and the public display of conquered leaders. Resistance was punished not randomly, but as a deliberate lesson to others. Judah, in contrast, was small, fragile, and strategically squeezed. Its neighbors, Israel to the north and Philistine territories to the west, had already fallen under Assyrian dominance. The kingdom's economy was modest, its population limited, and its military far smaller than the approaching army. Yet Judah had walls simple but sturdy and natural defenses, including rocky terrain in the Kidron Valley. Their most potent asset, however, would not be stone or steel, but the decisions of their king. King Hezekiah ascended to the throne of Judah at a time of existential crisis. He inherited a kingdom under threat from both Assyria and internal unrest. Historians suggest he was pragmatic, a ruler focused on governance, alliances, and preparation rather than personal glory. He understood that survival depended less on combat heroics and more on discipline, systems, and planning. Hezekiah's early reforms included strengthening Jerusalem's walls, centralizing authority, and securing food and water. Some scholars argue that his political maneuvering, seeking support from Egypt and neighboring states also. Complicate Assyrian calculations. But all of these measures would be tested to their limit. In the year 701 BC, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, advanced on Judah with the precision of a general who trusted not chance, but process. His army moved along established roads, using siege engineers to flatten obstacles and scouts to gather intelligence. The campaign began with Lachish, Judah's second-largest city. The siege of Lachish was brutal and systematic. Archaeological evidence shows walls breached, prisoners executed, and the population scattered. For Jerusalem, this was a clear message. Defiance equals destruction. Fear was as much a weapon as battering rams. Assyrian envoys delivered messages to Jerusalem, warning of total annihilation. The citizens were terrified. Families debated, surrender and submit, or resist and die. Inside the walls, tension simmered. Every sound outside footsteps, the clash of arms amplified anxiety, yet Hezekiah maintained calm. He rationed food, reinforced gates, and kept morale steady. The siege would test not just the city walls, but the discipline and resilience of every inhabitant. Hezekiah's preparation was multifaceted. Water: the city relied on the Gihon spring outside the walls. Hezekiah commissioned the Siloam tunnel, diverting water safely into the city. This secured a supply that the Assyrians could not cut off. Food granaries were filled to last months, anticipating prolonged siege. Walls: Jerusalem's fortifications were reinforced and supplemented with towers and gates. Command structure: civic leaders, priests, and military officers were coordinated to maintain order. Every element was planned with one principle: survival through endurance. Unlike Lachish, Jerusalem could not be taken quickly. The Assyrians would face time as an enemy as much as walls. Sennacherib arrived outside Jerusalem with tens of thousands of soldiers. He encamped in the surrounding plains, ready to starve the city into submission. Archaeological reliefs depict Assyrian engineers constructing ramps and siege towers. Yet Jerusalem's walls stood unbroken. Assyrian strategy extended beyond swords. Envoys, letters, and threats were sent, promising safety in exchange for surrender. This was psychological warfare. The Assyrians hoped that fear and negotiation would replace the need for prolonged combat. Hezekiah, however, refused to yield. He balanced diplomacy with preparation, projecting calm while reinforcing defenses. The siege tested every facet of human endurance. Inside the walls, the population faced hunger as stores were carefully rationed, disease inevitable in crowded conditions, psychological strain as the enemy loomed beyond the gates. Outside, the Assyrians faced frustration and logistical strain. Their siege engines were slowed by terrain. Supply lines stretched across hostile land. Disease and attrition began to erode morale. Every day Jerusalem survived was a day closer to victory, and every mistake inside or outside the walls could be fatal. After weeks, the siege reached a critical stage. Some historians suggest famine and disease afflicted the Assyrian camp. Biblical accounts hint at divine intervention, though from a historical perspective, the effect is systemic. The Assyrian army could not sustain itself indefinitely in hostile territory. Hezekiah's choice to endure rather than attack, flee, or surrender proved decisive. The city's fortifications, water supply, and rationing systems outlasted the invaders. This was not chance. It was preparation, patience, and discipline under immense pressure. Sennacherib withdrew, leaving Jerusalem intact. No walls were breached. No population was enslaved. The city had survived against the most advanced military machine of its time. Victory was subtle, almost invisible. There were no dramatic duels or battlefield heroics. The triumph lay in planning, endurance, and systemic resilience. Jerusalem's survival emboldened its neighbors. Assyrian expansion slowed in Judah, creating a buffer that allowed the kingdom to stabilize. Hezekiah's political position strengthened, and the siege entered memory as a story of strategic foresight triumphing over brute force. The Assyrian siege of Jerusalem influenced the Near East for decades. It demonstrated that empire, no matter how disciplined, had limits. It reinforced the importance of logistics, preparation, and leadership. It shaped religious and cultural identity, with Jerusalem's endurance becoming symbolic for resilience and faith. In a broader sense, this siege reframed the understanding of power and resistance. Overwhelming force can be resisted with discipline, foresight, and coordination. Empires, for all their might, are not invincible when faced with preparation and human endurance. The lesson from Jerusalem in 701 BC is subtle. History is rarely shaped by dramatic acts of heroism alone. It is molded by systems, choices, and patience. The Assyrian siege reminds us that survival often depends not on the sword, but on the careful orchestration of resources, people, and time. Jerusalem's story teaches us that discipline, strategy, and preparation can bend history itself. A city that should have fallen endured, not through luck, but through human ingenuity and resilience. What other sieges, battles, or strategic moments shaped the course of civilizations? Subscribe and explore with us the stories where the hidden systems of history decide outcomes, not chance or heroes alone.